In this video, I'm going to be going over everything you need to start pond bass fishing. I'm going to be going over rods, reels, tackle boxes, tools you'll need, places you can fish, and how to get started. And I know a lot of this can seem really complicated when you're first starting out. Trust me, it was complicated for me. So I'm going to try to break down everything and make it really easy for you to understand. But before we get started, I've been fishing for a little over 2 years, close to 3 years actually now. And when I first started, I didn't have a lot of friends into it. So really what I did is I watched a lot of YouTube videos and just fished every single chance I could get. And since then I've been able to catch some pretty big bass, 5-pounder, almost 6-pounder. So with all that information, I hope this video is going to be helpful to y'all, and let's get right into the gear that you need. So when you're starting fishing, it's kind of obvious. One of the first things you need is a rod, and I've got a couple rods back here. And there's a ton of rods out there, a ton of different types, styles of reels. But the basic type that you're going to want to start out with as a beginner is the spinning combo. And there are a lot of different reasons for this. One, because it's very easy to use as a beginner to learn how to cast this thing and retrieve it. It's very simple, doesn't take very long to get really comfortable with this style of reel. Another reason is that it's really good at throwing some of these lighter lures, so more beginner lures. This is going to be a perfect rod to start throwing those on. Just super simple and easy to use. A spinning rod is what I started out on. I threw all of my baits, even some big baits, on the spinning rod, and so this is a great starter rod. And when starting out, I would recommend getting a 6-foot 9-inch rod with a spinning reel, and that's going to be great to start you out. Now, if you don't have a lot of money, or you don't want to buy that specific rod reel combo, and you already have another random spinning rod that you have laying around, just use whatever you have, because it doesn't really matter when you're first starting out. Just get out there and start fishing. And I didn't mention the line, but normally if you buy a spinning combo, it's already going to come with line. But if you have to put some on your spool, I would recommend 10-pound fluorocarbon. Now, if you've been fishing for a little bit and you want to get into some heavier lures, a harder type of reel to use is a bait caster. And these are designed for being really accurate with your heavier lures. And just the way the reel is designed, it has a lot of torque, so you can get bass out of really difficult places. So this is the second rod and reel combo I would buy. It's a 7-foot medium heavy bait casting combo. So this is going to be for your heavier jigs, your bigger top waters, just basically heavier lures. This rod is going to excel at, whereas the spinning rod is going to excel at more of those smaller size lures, those lighter lures. And for this rod, most of the time I'm going to have some 15 to 17-pound fluorocarbon on there. If you really want to throw a frog, I would recommend putting some 30 to 40-pound braid on there with maybe a leader if you're using other lures. But that's kind of for down the road. For most of your lures, 15 to 17-pound fluorocarbon is going to work great on your bait caster. So now that we've got the rods out of the way, the next thing you're going to need is a way to store all of your lures and all of your stuff. So what I have over here is just a basic backpack. And as probably a lot of y'all have seen in previous videos, I've been using this bag for a while. It's just a basic old backpack that I'd had. And you just need something to store your lures, and you don't need a fancy $100 fishing backpack. You can just buy an old backpack and throw your stuff in. It doesn't really matter. If you want to go out and buy a fishing backpack or use some other bag, just anything that can carry your fishing tackle. And then to store your lures, I like to use a hard, clear plastic tackle box like this one right here. I believe this is the 3700 size Plano tackle box, and as you can see, it's getting kind of dirty in there, but it's got a bunch of the lures that I use right in there, and this is pretty much the only tackle box that I carry around with me. It's got a wide variety. It can really store a lot of stuff in this really cheap, I think it's like $3 or $5 at Walmart. Just really cheap option for a tackle box. And then for soft plastics, which I'll get into later a little bit, I use this little bag to store my soft plastics a little bit more efficiently. So they're really easy to access. You don't really need this. You can just use the bags that they originally come in, and you can just throw them in a big Ziploc bag or whatever. But this is the one way that I do it to keep everything organized in my backpack. All right, before we put the bag away, after you've got all your lures and tackles stored in your backpack, you're gonna need a couple other tools. So up here in this pocket right here, I have a pair of pliers. And pliers are super important because it's really easy to get a hook stuck down in a fish's throat, and you gotta get some needle nose pliers to reach down there, get it out. Also, if you're using treble hooks, that fish can be flopping around and you do not wanna get hooked by that, trust me. And so this will help you do that a little bit more safely. So it's great to have a pair of needle nose pliers. And this is just a multi-tool that I have, but another tool that you're really gonna need when you're fishing is some line cutters. And this happens to have some decently sharp scissors on it. So this is going to be for cutting fluorocarbon mono braid, just a good line cutter that you can easily cut your tag ends off, cut your line out of a tree for when you inevitably cast a lure in a tree. You need to get it out of there, you can just snip your line. But you could bring along a pair of scissors, doesn't really matter, just some way so that you can snip that line easily. This is nice because it's 2-in-1, but they also sell some fishing pliers that have line cutters built in. So there's a lot of different things that you can use, just some pliers and some line cutters. Another thing that I like to have with me is a fishing scale. So this is one I just bought off of Amazon. It works really well. It comes with some little fish grips. If you are scared of holding fish and it's your first time, this might help you out. Eventually it's good to just learn how to hold your bass. It took me a minute to get used to it because I hadn't done any fishing before. But this is the scale. You just turn it on, wait for it to zero out, clamp this around the fish's mouth, and it works really nice. This is not a necessary tool, but it is kind of nice to be able to have a picture of the weight of your actual fish, so you know for future reference how big your fish actually are that you're catching. And then the last tool that's really helpful to have, I've been using a lot recently, is a good pair of polarized sunglasses. These are optional, you don't have to have them, but it really does cut down on the glare when the sun is shining at the water and it reflects at your eyes and you can't like see through the water just because the sun's reflecting. This will really help cut down on that glare. All right, so that's everything you need to get out there and start catching some fish. But what if you're new to fishing and you don't have a good fishing spot yet? Well, there's a couple ways that I personally use to find new fishing spots, and the first of which is an app called FishBrain. I use the FishBrain app especially when I first started out, and basically what it does is it just kind of shows a map and a lot of different ponds that other people have logged on there, and you can get on there and you can see other people's catches. You can see a whole lot of different species other than bass, which is really awesome. And so that's a great way to find other neighborhood ponds, other ponds that you had no idea you could fish. And not all the ponds that are on the app are totally legal to fish. So it's just kind of fish at your own risk, but that will definitely give you a great place to start. Another way to find ponds is using Google Earth, just kind of looking around, seeing if you can find a body of water near you. And if it's not on public property, you'll have to go see if you can find the homeowner and ask them. Asking permission is a great way to find ponds. Sometimes it's a little hard. People are concerned about you getting hurt on their property and liability and all that, but it never hurts to ask. And just talking about fishing with friends, asking people if they have a pond, just trying to make connections with other people, that's a great way to find a pond to fish. Okay, so now you've got everything you need, hopefully a location that you can fish at, and now you need to know how you can actually catch a bass. And a ton of bass fishing is based on what mood the bass are in. And I'm gonna explain some of the ways you can tell, but a great resource for this is called Bass Forecast. It's an app. I've been using Bass Forecast for a couple months now. It's a really great app, and basically what it does is it takes like all the weather, all the moon phases, all the barometric pressure, all this stuff, all these different factors, and analyzes the data and tells you on a scale from 1 to 10 how good that fishing is gonna be on a particular day. So you just put your location in, your city, or if you're on a lake, you can put the name of the lake in, and it will tell you kind of in general how good the fishing is gonna be. And the app even gives you recommended baits and places to fish. So it's a really good tool if you're just getting into bass fishing, you don't exactly know what to do. This will really help you start learning. But we need to know how that translates to actual fishing. If the bass are in a really good mood, that means they're willing to chase stuff around. They're gonna be really aggressive and eating a whole lot. Now, if they're a lot slower, they're kind of in a bad mood, they get more lethargic, which means they get like their metabolism slows down. They don't have to eat as much. They're not gonna wanna chase your lure down and eat it all the time. So many times slower presentations and smaller baits is gonna be better for when the bass are in those bad moods. And the bass mood changes depending on the season of the year. So in the spring, there's a wide variety of bass moods. So in general, I would use slower moving lures, probably not a ton of crazy lures. When it gets to the summer, it's gonna really heat up and the fish are gonna get a lot of pressure. So generally they're gonna be pretty hard to catch. You'll wanna use slower and smaller lures. But when it gets to those mornings and evenings, that water will cool down and the fish will be a lot more active. Also in the summer, another great thing is shade, because the bass don't like that direct sunlight beating down straight into their eyes, which they can't close. Their eyes are stuck open. So the bass will really congregate, and you can bet that they're gonna be in those shade lines. And then in the fall, as the weather starts to cool down, the bass will go crazy. They'll be super aggressive. And then as it starts to lead into the winter, they'll start getting more and more lethargic as their metabolism slows down. They won't eat as often, so they'll be very non-aggressive during the winter time. Now there are some general places and areas that you want to cast when you're fishing. And the bass love these places because they're great places to ambush a fish, great places to hide from predators. So around grass and other vegetation, those bass are going to be all in there. Around sticks, around stumps and other wood in the water, around rocks, anything man-made in the water like bridges, docks, culverts, pipes. basically anything that's different from the normal bank. So if you're seeing a bank and you see a big tree sticking out into the water, you can make a pretty good guess that there's gonna be more bass there than on just the basic bank. So what lures are we gonna use based off of the mood that the bass are in? Well, as I've already said, the faster moving lures are gonna be used when the bass are in a great mood. So in the summer, when it's a morning or evening, you can use some of those faster moving baits. During the fall, when the fish are feeding up, you can use some of those faster moving baits. When the fish are really aggressive, you can use those faster and more fun style baits. Now, when the weather gets really cold or really hot, the bass are just in a bad mood, they're not gonna be chasing those lures. So you really have to slow down your presentation, maybe get a smaller bait, something that those bass are gonna be willing to eat. When you're first starting out, it's really easy to have the mentality of what's the best lure out there? I wanna get the best lure. But really the best mentality to have is what do the bass want right now? Because all the lures on the store shelves can catch bass. It's just what are the bass in the mood for at the time. Now, when you're selecting your lures, you also want to keep in mind the water clarity. So if you have really dirty water, you want to have a color that will stand out from it. So your browns, your greens is gonna blend right in with that dirty water, and the fish won't even be able to see it as well. So you wanna go with some more shiny colors, some really bright colors, maybe a really, really dark color, something that'll stand out. If you've got clear water, on the other hand, you want to have something that looks really natural. You want something that looks actually realistic, that the fish wouldn't be like, what is that random pink lure swimming by me in this ultra clear water? You want something that they can recognize. So now you know what gear you need. Hopefully you have a place you can fish. You know kind of how to choose the correct lures. So now you're actually at the pond and you need to know how to fish it. So a good practice when you first pull up to a pond and you don't really know necessarily what the mood of the bass is right at the moment, a great thing to do is to use a moving bait. So something that you can cast and then keep on walking around the bank. Especially for pond fishing, you want to be moving and cover as much water as possible. So something like a chatterbait, I would recommend a chatterbait mini max is a great beginner bait for ponds especially. So you can just cast it out there, retrieve it, and keep on moving. And a great practice when you're going around your pond is to make a cast out into the middle, a cast maybe 45 degrees to the side, and then one almost parallel to the bank, so you can kind of figure out what depth the bass are in. Now, if you fished all you can or made a loop around the pond and you haven't gotten any bites, most likely you're gonna have to slow it down a little bit. So something I would recommend for this is a wacky rig. And this is a really simple rig. It's just a Senko with a single hook through the middle. It's just a really slow the way it flutters down, and the bass just love it. Especially when they're not moving really fast, they're not very aggressive, they'll still eat that wacky rig. So those are two specific lures I would recommend: the chatterbait mini max for moving a little faster, and the wacky rig Senko for moving a little bit slower. And always be remembering the places where you catch fish, what depth they were in, if they were next to any grass or vegetation. And so you can kind of make a pattern. And next time you come to that pond, you can hit those same places and hopefully have the same luck. And always remember that location is way more important than your lure selection. It's much better to throw the wrong lure in the right place than the right lure in the wrong place. I hope this video has been helpful for y'all. If you want to see what my tackle box looks like after 2 years of fishing, you can click right up here. I hope y'all enjoyed the video, and I will see y'all in the next upload.